Okay, so welcome back. At this point, you guys should have your rough copies, your thumbnails, everything figured out, and it's about time to start transitioning into the good copies. Now, there's lots of choice in terms of the materials that you can end up using for this particular project. I'm not going to be overly prescriptive because I want you to choose a material, A, that you have access to, and B, that you feel like you're going to be confident in using. So a couple of things to keep in mind is that the quality of the materials will affect the overall quality of your final piece. But at the same time, I'm not going to be expecting you to rush out and buy a ton of materials, okay? So first thing we're going to talk about is the support, right? And that's what we're drawing on. So what I have here is just a piece of photocopy paper. Right? It's very, very flimsy, right? Which is gives it a little bit of flexibility, but it also has a very, very smooth surface, right? So this is going to be good for typically something that you're going to want to have with very little texture, right, and not a tremendous amount of shading. Right? This would be more good for sort of black and white work because you're not going to be able to get the greatest range of values with this because it's also going to be very permanent with what you are doing. The second type of paper that you could use is just a piece of cardstock. Right? This has again a very smooth texture. Both of these materials are not very forgiving if you end up making a mistake. The advantage of this paper is that it can take a little bit more abuse because it's a thicker material, right? You can actually hear the sound that this makes in comparison, right, between the two. Okay, so this is going to be a little bit more forgiving. And then if you're looking at doing something that's a little bit more refined, Canson has this really, really great product. This is specifically designed for creating comic books. Gives you some lines in here for doing the paneling, but also similar to this would just be a standard kind of mixed media sketchbook material as well. Right? So these types of things are definitely going to be accessible to cardstock and sketching material like this that's a little bit heavier duty. You can easily get over at Michaels or Curry's or Above Ground. Curry's is probably going to be the closest one to us here in the Brampton area. So we have to figure out what it is that we're going to draw on. Right? It really needs to be a clean sheet of paper. So I've seen in many of the thumbnails and rough copy working on line paper and working on of course, the dot paper like I was doing as well, which is fine for that rough work. But as we transition into the good copy, right, it needs to be a clean white sheet of paper. The second thing that we need to talk about is the type of material that you're going to be using for doing the actual drawing. Right, all three of these particular papers that I've shown you so far will take what I'm going to show, the materials I'm going to show you fairly well. Pencils for sure, and definitely these are the Micron pens. Copic markers are going to be much better with this particular paper as opposed to the photocopy paper. Right, you might be able to get away with these on cardstock, but they are an alcohol-based marker. They're really good for blending. Professional comic book artists will use these. None of the media that I'm showing you are particularly great for water-based materials, such as like watercolors or gouache, because there isn't the weight of the paper in order to absorb that moisture. Again, if you're wanting to do something like that, definitely go out and find a good paper to be doing that mixed media work on. Okay. So first thing that we're going to be doing, right, is I would highly recommend that when you are starting to draw is that you are taking your rough copy, right, and you are tracing this, right? It doesn't matter what type of paper we have here. Except for like an illustration board, which I don't have at home to be able to show you, but you can see I'm just kind of holding this up to the camera lights that I have at home, right? And you can see the drawing through. You want to try and minimize the amount of pencil work that you are doing. If you have to use pencil to get started, it's totally fine. However, please make sure that you are using a fairly hard pencil and that you are pressing very, very lightly. Okay? Otherwise, you're A, going to score the paper, and B, you're going to get that ghosting effect. Okay? So if you're going to draw lightly. When working with the space, make sure that you are working cleanly. Okay? Of all of the media that I have here, okay, the pencils are going to be the dirtiest, and this is going to be the hardest one to control, especially as you start using things like the 3, 4, and 6B pencils that you may have available to you at home. Right? The spacing in between each of the panels needs to be tidied up. One of the things that you might want to consider is using the software program Affinity, and I'm going to be putting a tutorial so that once you're done drawing these out, we can take these into the computer, and I'll show you a couple of tricks for just kind of cleaning up the images, working on the brightness, and then pasting them into the digital document in order to get the really nice, clean, crisp borders. It's actually a pretty easy, simple process. Right? So these pencils, they're really, really dirty. Be really, really careful with these in particular. The Micron pens are very, very nice. I love these pens. They come in a variety of different tips. Right? We have everything from a brush tip, which is going to allow you to get really nice, undulating, clean lines. Right? These are the lines that change thickness. So there's good variety there. But you can also get these types of pens in different sized tips. So in this one, this is a 0.5, and this one is a 0.2. Let's see if I can get these up here to show you. Okay, right, you can see the difference there. The one on the right, this one here, you can see is quite large. This one is a 0.2. It's quite a bit smaller, right? And the advantage of using these particular pens and having a variety of them is that as you're going in and drawing your lines, these will help to create your line variety. Okay, so that you can have some that are thicker and thinner, right? And these can actually get incredibly focused and tiny as well. This is a 0.05, and this is really good for creating a fair bit of detail. Okay. The Copic markers, there's also things like Tomboys, all sorts of different brands out there. You can get them in preset grays, right? So this way, as you're thinking and developing your work, you can go for 5 tones. And this is what I recommended in a lot of the feedback that I provided to you, is if you're looking at including some sort of tonal ranges, think of 5. You have the white of the paper, you have a light gray, medium gray, dark gray, and black. And through that combination, you're going to be able to create a really interesting dynamic range of values. So with this really quick, again, these are dual tips. So I've got a chisel tip and a brush, and I'm just going to throw this on here, right? So this is the one gray, right? You can barely see it on there. And as I go through, I can pick out a couple of others. This is the 3, right? Again, slightly darker. This is a 5. Right, here's a chisel tip as well. Oh, this one's almost dead. I'm gonna have to replace this pen. There we go. Right, a little bit darker. Right, and then you can combine these with other, right? You can use Sharpies as well, right? So you can get your blacks, right? And then you have the white of the paper, right? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And then we have the white of the paper would be 5 tones, right? Which could give you a really good range overall. Okay? One of the things that I want you to be really considering too, right, is how the material is going to interact with the paper. So I'm going to try and lift this up as close as I can, right? And what I want you to see here is the really nice cleanliness of the lines. If you tend to hold your pen or marker in one space for a prolonged period of time where you're going really, really slow, what you're going to end up with is a little bit of bleeding. The edges of your lines are going to start to get a little bit fuzzy, right? And here, let's see this. Right, so this is, where are we? There we are. Okay. Right, it's kind of hard to see this on the screen, but the lines aren't very crisp. They aren't very clean. Something to just keep in mind in order to think about that overall quality. I'm going to do a couple of different things here with my drawings. I'm going to be using some of these Copic markers and the Microns primarily. in order to create them. And again, I'm going to just kind of do the same thing that I did with the rough work. I'm just going to take some video, record me with that drawing process and the tracing, and we're going to just kind of go from there, okay, overall. And then, as I said, I'm planning on taking these drawings and bringing them into Affinity Designer and possibly Affinity Photo, just to kind of touch them up a little bit, and I'll show you those techniques as well. Okay, so that's the different media that you have available to you, right? Really consider the types of materials that you are thinking, right? Because again, what you are choosing to work on, okay, affects how the material ends up lying down, right? So Sharpies and cardstock work actually really well. The cardstock does not particularly like the Copic markers, right? But the cardstock would also like the microns, okay? So think about what it is that you want to use. If you have questions, make sure that you're asking, and good luck. You guys are blowing my mind with the quality of your work so far. Keep it up. Super stellar, amazing drawing, guys. Really impressed. Have a great day. Bye.